The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
The wait is over. The whiteout game is here. Penn State versus Oregon. Playoff hopes are on the line.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
So Spencer, the floor is yours. I will let you go first. You have an open dialogue here to explain why Oregon wins this one. We'll save our score prediction for the end of this first segment here, but let's lay out all of the main reasons why Oregon, and then I'll take Penn State, of course.
Yeah, open mic night. Hopefully I do better than Jonah Hill in 22 Jump Street at the slam poetry event. So the case for Oregon winning this game is rooted in the offensive explosion plays. And when you create more of those, like Oregon did last year against Ohio State in the big game at Autzen Stadium, and they outgained them on the ground as well. We'll certainly get into all of that. But the explosion plays were the difference. Oregon's ability to take the top off, push the ball down the field. And they've got a group of guys this year that I think are more proficient at executing those sorts of plays. And Dillon Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart were the guys that really come to mind when I say explosion plays against Ohio State from last year's big game for the Ducks. In this game, it's Dante Moore to Malik Benson to Corey Moore, and I'll put Kenyon Sadiq in there as well. And I wonder if there isn't a back shoulder or Moss sort of moment from Kenyon Sadiq coming in this game. We haven't seen it this year. It hasn't been needed necessarily, but we know he's capable of that sort of play with his athleticism, lest Penn State fans forget how great his jumping ability is. So I think that's the biggest thing that you look at in Oregon's ability to shift momentum with those sorts of plays, to stay on the field and sustain drives and make easy touchdowns as well. It will be a different type of test for this Penn State defense than what they went up against last year in the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator as well. But I want to go to this Oregon secondary as the second thing that is part of the blueprint for Oregon winning the game, because that was a question for me coming into this year. There's a lot of talent, but there wasn't a lot of experience. And through 4 games, it's hard to argue with the results those guys have had. The opposing quarterback numbers are abysmal in that opposing quarterbacks have been really bad against this Oregon pass defense. And the pass rush is a part of that. You got to speed up a quarterback when he's in the pocket. You got to make him uncomfortable, hit him a little, but the secondary has played really well. They haven't been flagged a lot. They've been good in the run game as well in support. So I think their ability to make it more difficult for Penn State to move the ball down the field, bring an extra safety in the box to limit the run game, make Drew Aller beat you on the perimeter. I think that combined with the explosive plays on offense are the areas that make me feel most confident about Oregon going into this game.
All right. Very well said. No critiques of Penn State, so I'm surprised about that one. So you gave all of the Oregon plus positives. Let me give you the Penn State plus positives. So you mentioned Jim Knowles. Okay, I think that's one, because when you look back at the Big Ten championship game, it was a shootout. It was a high-scoring event. It was 45-37, and the reason Penn State does not come away with a victory, the main reason anyway, is because of Tom Allen. Well, you upgrade a defensive coordinator. You don't just lose Tom Allen, you actually upgrade that spot, because that defense was still a top 10, top 15 conservatively defense in the country. And Penn State goes and gets objectively the best coordinator in all of college football in Jim Knowles, best defensive coordinator anyway. So that helps. And then you retain that defensive talent, right? Denied Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Tony Rojas, you get Amari Campbell out of the transfer portal to really, because it's, Penn State doesn't have the same players that Ohio State did. No, but they still have some pretty good NFL caliber players themselves. Again, Dennis Sutton, Durant, freshman and Chaz Coleman that's really coming on strong. Tony Rojas, Amari Campbell, A.J. Harris, who could be a first or second round NFL draft pick at cornerback. Zachy Wheatley isn't Caleb Downs, but he's doing a lot of similar things that Caleb Downs has done and is doing them well. You've granted the competition, of course. So you have that defense. You have an elite defense that can limit Oregon's offense in ways, right? But then I want to flip it over to, Penn State had its offensive struggles, criticisms anyway. It was the Tyler Warren show. Really, it was just running the football in the Tyler Warren show. And Penn State was still able to get 37 points against Oregon's defense that I do not know and they will prove me wrong on Saturday if this is the case, but I do not know as we sit here right now if Oregon's defense is better than last year's iteration of that defense. Okay. I think that it's good. I still think it's going to be one of the best defenses in the country, but is it better than the group that Penn State played last year that still put up 37 points against them despite all of those shortcomings that they had and one-dimensional aspects of that offense? So I do believe that Penn State, you don't need to throw the kitchen sink at Villanova, FIU, Nevada. You can save plays, yes, but it's also just kind of being conscious about, hey, is it really worth Drew Aller running the football in this moment here? Having him get hurt on a freak type of play? Is it really worth it? Drew Aller is going to be a little more involved in the ground game himself. Those reads that he would pass up on in those games in the non-conference, he's definitely going to take if it's there against Oregon. So Andy Kotelnicki had success the first time around. I think he'll have success again, particularly on the ground game, okay? So Oregon's run defense is good, and it's because of that secondary. The reason Oregon's run defense is because that secondary is so reliant. They are so self-sufficient in one-on-one, man-to-man coverage that they can bring the linebackers up. They can be aggressive around the line of scrimmage. We'll see what Penn State does to kind of keep them honest there. Play action is going to be a big part of it. And, I haven't mentioned it yet. The whiteout crowd, cross-country trip, those factors matter. They do. Right? They do. This isn't a meeting in the middle at Indianapolis. This is a full-on 6-hour flight. Staying in a hotel, driving up, or it's a 45.
Is it 6 hours?
I think so. 5.5, 6 hours, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's full on 6. I think it's like 9 or so to get to Europe from the West Coast. 9-ish.
Okay. It's still a long. It's still long.
It's a long trip. Sorry, that was a random aside.
No, you're so maybe I don't have that, but it's 6 hours to California, so I guess that's what I'm going off of. It's still a lengthy trip across the country. All those things considered, Penn State's in, a pretty good spot with the 2 weeks to prepare. You get an extra week to prepare against Oregon. I think Penn State's healthier than where Oregon is right now. So all those things considered, Penn State does have one of the better setups to win a big game here that James Franklin desperately needs. I will say, though, there's less pressure on Oregon to win this game than there is Penn State if you want to factor that in.
No, I think that is a big factor that works in Oregon's favor. Is Dan Lanning is incredibly locked in based on his comments last week, is incredibly driven. We know how motivated a guy he is, and we see that every week, and that's really fun for people that are not typically able to peek behind the curtain there. But for Penn State, this is different. And James Franklin has to have been asked about it enough to the point I've asked him about it. I'm sure you've asked him about it before, and a number of other people have, that he doesn't win these big games, and he hasn't performed well against top 10 and top 5 opponents, and that has to weigh on him at some level. And the question is whether it weighs on his team, whether or not it creeps into his mind when, his kicker's lining up a field goal to take the lead with 3 minutes to go is irrelevant, because it really matters what that kicker is thinking about in that particular spot. So, I think that for Penn State in this spot, there's significantly more pressure. Emotionally for Oregon fans, like, one of the reasons I'm excited about it is because it should be a really fun game. The rematch, the whiteout, it's all spectacular, and that's all really great and awesome. One of the reasons, frankly, is someone who really wants Oregon to win this game and prove that they're a national title threat for a second straight or third straight season, really, is I don't expect Oregon to win the game. And I kind of go in emotionally with house money, where, hey, if I get something back here, hey, great. I wasn't expecting to get that. But I've talked about this game, and so have you, for months, and it's awesome that it's finally here. But, the way that I've always looked at it is, can Oregon win the game? Yeah, they got to do a lot of things well. Definitely with the start we've seen from them this season, they're capable. I don't think that it's some massive upset for Oregon to go in there and win. The deck is just stacked in favor of Penn State in this spot, and so that's one of the reasons I'm also excited to watch it. Is, if Oregon loses this game, as long as they don't get blown out, I could still feel good after the game. There's no world in which Penn State loses no matter what. If the outcome at the end of the day is a loss, bad vibes in Happy Valley. And that doesn't have to be the case in Oregon's camp.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
If you're a Southerner, if you're an SEC fan, if you have any history with college football, Georgia-Alabama is always going to be the game of the weekend when these two teams match up. How you doing today, sir? And how's it been getting ready for this matchup on Saturday?
Appreciate it. Yeah, happy to be doing this. And, the Alabama-Georgia thing is a little odd. There is a rivalry, but there isn't because they don't play each other all the time. I predate you by a pretty good bit. And when I was in school, I was at Bama 91 to 95. And I'll never forget one of the biggest things we got ready for. At the time, we didn't really ever have night games. And Alabama was going to be on at night facing Eric Zaire. And it was a huge deal. It was just a big moment. And, since then we've had some other games and obviously, but nothing that really was awesome until Nick Saban got here. And then, Georgia was already good in 2012, one of the best games you'll ever see. 2023 was awesome. The national championship game was awesome in the second half. The first half was sort of blasé, but it's just an interesting rivalry. And, I'm glad I don't think the world needs Alabama, Georgia every year permanently.
No, I don't think so either. And Alabama's obviously got their Tennessees and their Auburns, and Georgia's got their Floridas and their Auburns. And, these are the rivalries that I think that matter. But, Florida and Auburn and Tennessee hadn't been holding up their end of the bargain for the last several years. And so Alabama, Georgia is it when it comes to big time college football in the SEC. By the way, today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. More on them in a second. But Luke, I'll just jump in and I'll ask you, as Alabama prepares, I think everybody watched week one and saw the Florida State game, and then everybody's kind of seen the shift in Alabama. And I feel like the national narrative right now is Alabama's fixed and Alabama's clicking, and that Florida State game seems to be a distant memory. Where would you say right now is the biggest struggle for this Alabama team currently? Where's the spot on the team that you still look at and go, man, that makes me nervous?
I think it's the way that they approach a road game. I was at Florida State, and I was with some more optimistic than Alabama fans at halftime, and they kept saying, man, we're going to come back. I said, dude, look on the sideline. There's no juice. There's nothing. There's just nothing. I said, you can feel the lack of energy from our sideline. I said, and it's a weird feeling. I said, I don't think we're coming back. And I'll give them props because I know there's only been 2 games and 2 games against not such great competition. Wisconsin, a Power 4 team, but they're not good right now. But they look sharp. It seemed like maybe DeBoer did sort of a 180, or as a friend of mine used to say, it did a complete 190. He went the opposite way and then just 10 degrees more. But I think he started getting a little bit more animated, a little bit angrier. He's not going to be Nick Saban level, but nobody is. And I think that the players have responded to that somewhat. So I'm hoping that the crispness we've seen from these last 2 games isn't just a reflection of the competition. I think it's that Alabama has actually gotten better. The biggest concern is still going to be the the running game. Now, look, I say it's a big concern, but Jimmy and I both agreed on our predictions podcast today that the running game is a huge concern going forward, but it's not necessarily a huge concern in this game because I don't think Alabama's going to be able to run it very well. Everybody talks about Jam Miller coming back. I think that's wonderful, but if a hole's not there, a hole's not there. Doesn't matter if it's Jam Miller, Sean Alexander, Derrick Henry, or whatever. So, and the holes just haven't been there for the running backs, it seems like. The passing, though, has been great. So I'm hoping that we are what we are in this game. We are a passing team right now. And I think that's a weakness of Georgia is the passing game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that does, Clint and I were talking about, we actually see a lot of similarities between 2025 Alabama and 2024 Georgia. Yeah. Inability to run the ball and putting everything on the shoulders of a quarterback. Now, to be fair, Ty Simpson's not throwing the ball to the other team nearly as much as Carson Beck was last year for Georgia. But so I think Alabama's going to have maybe, chance for more success than Georgia did last year. But there's a lot of similarities there. Is the offense, is the running game a product of the offensive line then? You're saying the hole's not there, a hole's not there. Is this offensive line a liability for Georgia? I know there's so many highly rated guys on it. There's so many future first-round NFL draft picks. But is that a relative point of weakness? Maybe even looking at it from a pass rush standpoint, if they're going to be dropping back and throwing it a bunch of times in Athens on Saturday night.
I think it's a product of maybe we're a better pass protection team. We also have a pass happy coach and offensive coordinator, and our best players are our wide receivers. I mean, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard, they are both playing at an elite level right now. Yep. So I think when those are your best players and we don't have a running back, I love Jam Miller, I do, but we talk about this on the podcast and it comes off as an insult. But Jam Miller is not in Derrick Henry, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, TJ Yeldon, Najee Harris area code. He's a good back, and he's a pretty good receiver. He scored on wheel routes the last 2 times Alabama's played Georgia. Mm-hmm. So, hey, he can catch the ball. Yeah. But it's not like he was averaging 100 yards a game before he hurt his collarbone. That wasn't the case. He's a pretty good back. And I think getting him back is going to be big because I think he's great in pass protection. He's great in the receiving game. But I just think maybe this particular time, Alabama doesn't have what has been an Alabama running back of the last 15, 16 years. Now, A.K. Deere may ultimately be that guy. Maybe Kevin Riley takes it up even another notch, something like that. But right now, I just think it's a combination of we are a pass team. That is our new identity. And we also don't have a running back that would be of the ilk that we've seen lately.
Yeah, to be fair, everybody scores on a wheel route when they play Georgia, so that's not really a credit to Jam Miller. That's more just an indication. You and I could score on a wheel route against the Georgia defense, Luke. So
the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. However, I like to bet in the moment. Player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I host Locked On LSU. I'm on a bajillion different platforms. I'm pretty hard to miss. And I'm going to make a critical mistake right now, because everything in media tells you tease, the value of the tease. You keep your audience longer. You tell them what's coming. You entice them. You make them stay. Think of College Game Day. when College Game Day does the pick segment, it's not at the beginning of the show. They give you a 3-hour tease and build up to the crescendo, which are the picks. Lee Corso's headgear. Now Pat McAfee jumping in a pool wearing his underwear, whatever. I'm not going to make you wait to the end of this episode. I'm going to tell you my LSU Ole Miss pick right now because I don't think it's worth waiting. I think LSU is going to win and win handily. I am uncomfortably confident in LSU's ability to go to Oxford and win this game on Saturday. Almost irresponsibly confident in LSU winning this football game. As a matter of fact, I haven't been this confident in LSU beating Ole Miss since 2022. Now, if you're an Ole Miss fan who's found your way to this show, thank you, by the way. I appreciate you for being here. You'll probably remember this because, boy, there were a lot of Ole Miss fans not happy with me 3 years ago because on Monday of that game week, and you might remember, Ole Miss was undefeated and ranked 7th in the country, but they hadn't played a soul. Talked about it all throughout media days and building up. Ole Miss was going to come to Baton Rouge undefeated because they had a pretty good team and their schedule was soft as baby poop. And they did come to Baton Rouge undefeated. And they were ranked 7th in the country and flying high. And they were reading their own press clippings. And the fact of the matter is LSU is a better football team playing at home. And I said on Monday of that week that LSU said, I'm not even making you wait till Friday. So I said it last week, say it today. I'm going to say it again on Friday when I make my picks. LSU is going to beat Ole Miss, and they're going to do so handily. And boy, a lot of Ole Miss fans didn't like that. They quote tweeted that. They added me. They bookmarked it. They tweeted at Lane Kiffin. And you know what happened? LSU beat Ole Miss in Tiger Stadium, and not many of them had a darn thing to say. Listen, I'm no cheerleader for LSU. It's my school. I went there. I love them. I wanted to win and everything. If there's a tiddlywinks competition at a national championship, I want LSU to win it. If all of a sudden curling becomes a sanctioned sport by the NCAA, I don't know anything about dudes sweeping ice to let a little disc run down the thing. I don't really care. But if LSU, it's purple and gold, I want them to win. The bottom line is, though, if I think LSU is going to lose, I'm going to tell you. A lot of y'all were very unhappy with me when I picked Clemson to beat LSU because I thought that was a really difficult spot for LSU to open the season on the road against a veteran team with so many new pieces for LSU. But I also told you before that game that might be the last time this year I pick against LSU. And the reason is because I know what my eyes saw throughout spring and fall camp. You see, a lot of people who do this job have a really difficult time. And I'm not talking about fans who do radio show or fans who do YouTube channels. God bless it, wish everyone great success. I'm talking about credentialed media members who have access to the program and to coaches and to players and have real insight. And it's very difficult because in college, coaches do not have to grant access to anything. Like in the NFL, there is collectively bargained and mandated media availability. In professional sports leagues, it's not like that in college. But Brian Kelly has given us tremendous access. So I probably went and watched 20 hours of LSU football practice in fall. I'm not guessing. I'm not telling you something somebody told me. I'm telling you what my eyeballs saw when I went out to practice. And I told you all throughout spring and all throughout fall camp, that defense is legit. I told you A.J. Halsey is an incredible player. I told you Bernard Gooden was unblockable. I told you that Mansour Delane looks like a lockdown corner. I told you this. So Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins, they look like All-Americans. What have you seen through a month so far? You've seen all those things I just said. And what I've repeated over and over and over and over again is this is what it looks like when you go spend $20 million on your roster and you get a bunch of proven power forward dudes in the portal. And nobody should understand this more than Ole Miss fans, because this is exactly what Ole Miss did last year. What LSU is doing right now is exactly what Ole Miss did a year ago. They went into the transfer portal and they cleaned up. They got Trey Harris and they got Walter Nolan and they got Chris Paul. They got Princely Uman-Mielen and they got Trey Amos, and they were loaded at every level of their defense, skill dudes everywhere, fifth-year senior quarterback. Ole Miss was one of the best rosters in college football. And by the way, I picked Ole Miss last year to go to the playoff, and I picked Ole Miss to beat LSU last year in Tiger Stadium. They were 3.5-point favorite. And you know why Ole Miss didn't beat LSU and why they didn't go to the college football playoff? Because their coach is not a good head coach. Let me rephrase that. Their coach is not an elite championship caliber head coach. He is a great offensive mind. Really creative game planner, really creative offensive schemer. But Lane Kiffin, go back to a few years back when he's in Tuscaloosa and he says, get your popcorn ready. And from jump, from jump. Going forward on a fourth down deep in his own territory, doesn't make it, flip the field, Alabama, quick touchdown, and the route was on. Look at last year. LSU turnover deep in LSU's territory. Ole Miss didn't get any points off that turnover. Think about Ole Miss losing at home to Kentucky last year. Think about Ole Miss losing to Florida on the road. 2 games Ole Miss lost last year. Two different games Ole Miss lost as a double-digit favorite. Home against Kentucky, at Florida. And by the way, they had no business losing to LSU. Why did they lose? Because of their head coach, not because of talent. By the way, when LSU beat Ole Miss last year, I think we would all agree Ole Miss had a better roster. So what do we all say? You can say this out loud. What do we all say when a team with less talent beats the team with more talent? What's the reason the team with less talent beats the team with more talent? You can say it out loud. They got outcoached. Better coaching. Brian Kelly is a better coach than Lane Kiffin. You can laugh and hee-haw and guffaw all you want. Brian Kelly is the winningest active coach in college football. He's won at every stop he's been out. He got Notre Dame with inferior rosters, by the way, to a BCS championship and twice to a 4-team college football playoff. Lane Kiffin, with one of the best rosters in football, couldn't get Ole Miss to a 12-team college football playoff because he gagged away 3 games he had no business losing, including 2 as a double-digit favorite. LSU has a coaching advantage, and then LSU also has a massive quarterback advantage on Saturday in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. With all due respect to Chambliss, Trinidad Chambliss, who has been really good through his 2 starts so far, there is 0% chance if you put Trinidad Chambliss and Garrett Nussmeier on a wall and said, all right, pick, who do you want to be your quarterback? There's a 0% chance I would ever take Trinidad Chambliss over Garrett Nussmeier. I watched Garrett Nussmeier a year ago throw for 4,000 yards in the toughest conference in America. Watch that a season ago. My eyes, your eyes, that's the thing that happened in real life. He's the leading returning passer in all of college football this year. Garrett Nussmeier. I saw him, by the way, nails on a 4th down play, throw a touchdown pass to Aaron Anderson to send that game against Ole Miss to overtime. We all saw that with our own eyes. Trinidad Chambliss was playing for Division II Ferris State last year. And as my friend Russ Mitchell said, Ferris is not a state, it's a wheel. Now, that doesn't mean Trinidad Chambliss is a bad player. It just means what he was going up against in Division II Ferris State and what he's gone up against so far through his 2 starts this year will pale in comparison to the level of talent, speed, athleticism, creativity that he is going to see from LSU's defense and from Blake Baker's scheme. This is like going from an entry-level course, a 1,000-level course in college, to a PhD-level course in a matter of 2 weeks, and he ain't going to be ready for it. It is hard. It is really hard to play quarterback at this level, especially when you've never done it. Ask Arch Manning what it was like going to Ohio State. Ask DJ Lagway what it was like coming to Baton Rouge. Go down the list of guys that have never been in that situation before, what it's like. Ask Bryce Underwood what it was like for his first road start playing in Norman, Oklahoma. It is hard to do. And I don't think that Trinidad Chambliss is the guy that's going to all of a sudden solve LSU's defense.